Imagine a misty London evening in the late 1800s. Lantern light flickers on narrow cobblestone streets as respectable Dr. Henry Jekyll steps quietly through the fog. He seems calm, polite, a gentle doctor, but inside him something darker runs like a hidden river. With a secret potion, he transforms into Mr. Edward Hyde, a mysterious figure who moves through the night with wild, dangerous energy. That quiet London has a secret, and it all hides within one man. In 1886, Scottish author Robert Louis Stevenson wrote the novella Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This short Gothic horror story tells of Dr. Henry Jekyll, a well-liked and respected scientist who believes that every person has both kindness and darkness inside them. Wanting to better understand this idea, Dr. Jekyll creates a special potion. His goal is to separate the good part of himself from the bad. The potion works, but not in the way he expects. It turns him into Mr. Edward Hyde, a much smaller, meaner, and uncaring version of himself. At first, Jekyll is curious and even a little proud of his discovery, but soon Hyde starts to grow stronger and harder to control. The story, told mostly through the eyes of Jekyll's friend Mr. Utterson, becomes a suspenseful tale of a man fighting against his own dark side. Stevenson's story became more than a spooky tale. It introduced the idea that people can have two very different sides. The phrase "a Jekyll and Hyde" now describes someone who seems kind one moment and mean the next. Over time, the story has inspired plays, films, TV shows, and even cartoons. One early film version appeared in 1908, leading to many others, including a famous version starring Spencer Tracy in 1941. The themes of Jekyll and Hyde echo in modern pop culture too. Superhero stories like Marvel's Hulk reflect similar ideas. Dr. Bruce Banner becomes the Hulk when angry, a powerful yet uncontrollable form. Salesman Stan Lee said he was inspired by Jekyll and Hyde when creating the Hulk. Both characters show how a caring person can hide fierce, unpredictable strength inside. Another example is DC Comics' Two-Face. Ordinary lawyer Harvey Dent becomes a divided character, half good, half villain, depending on fate. Both he and Mr. Hyde remind us how one action or choice can bring out a hidden side. Even the supervillain Mr. Hyde in Marvel draws directly from Stevenson's creation. Though these modern characters often gain their powers through different means, gamma rays, tragic accidents, they share the same idea. Sometimes a hidden part of us can emerge under the right conditions. Like Banner, who tries to stay calm to avoid turning green and powerful, Dr. Jekyll tries to stay pure and kind, hoping Hyde will never be stronger. Today, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde remains powerful because it explores a truth. Every person has more than one side. It shows the importance of facing our inner struggles instead of ignoring them. Stevenson didn't just write a ghost tale. He wrote about the human heart, using a chilling story to make us think about our own choices. And in our movies and comics, those lessons still hold true. Long ago, in a mysterious castle high in the misty mountains of Transylvania, there lived a man named Count Dracula. His castle was surrounded by dark forests and steep hills, with clouds that often brushed against its towers. People in the nearby villages whispered strange stories about him, especially when the sun set and the moon rose in the sky. Count Dracula was no ordinary nobleman. According to the tales, he was a vampire. Vampires were thought to be magical creatures who stayed up at night and slept during the day. And they could live for hundreds of years. Some even said they could turn into bats or disappear into a mist. The most famous story about Count Dracula comes from a book published in 1897, written by an Irish author named Bram Stoker. In this book, a young lawyer named Jonathan Harker visits Dracula's castle to help him buy a house in London. Jonathan thought Dracula seemed polite at first, though he had pale skin, sharp teeth, and a strange way of moving. But as Jonathan spent more time in the castle, he realized something was very odd. The Count never appeared during the day, and his reflection did not show up in mirrors. Jonathan also found locked doors and secret passages that only Dracula could use. Jonathan decided to explore the castle one day and discovered Dracula sleeping in a wooden box. It was then that he truly believed Dracula was not a human at all, but a vampire. Jonathan escaped as fast as he could and told his friends back in England about the strange Count. When Dracula followed Jonathan to England, other characters in the story worked together to stop him. They learned that vampires could not go outside in the sunshine and that they could be scared away by special things like garlic and crosses. They also discovered that vampires couldn't cross water easily or enter a house unless someone invited them inside. Together, Jonathan and his friends tracked Dracula all the way back to his castle in Transylvania. They finally defeated him, and everyone was safe again. Even though the Count was gone, the legend of Dracula lived on. Readers were fascinated by this strange vampire who liked to travel in the dark and hide away in his ancient castle. Since then, Dracula and other vampires have appeared in hundreds of movies, plays, cartoons, and comic books. Sometimes they are shown as scary and spooky, and other times they are made into funny or friendly characters. Some versions of Dracula wear a long cape, speak in a spooky voice, and hide in the shadows. Others are shown as lonely, clever characters who wish they could live normal lives like humans. People enjoy telling new vampire stories because they can imagine all kinds of magical powers, like turning into a bat, moving without a sound, or living forever. Over time, vampires became part of popular culture. Children dress up as Dracula for Halloween, wearing a black cape and plastic fangs. Halloween parties often feature fake cobwebs, glowing pumpkins, and spooky music to make it feel like a vampire's castle. There are also cartoons and movies that show vampires as helpful or kind. In these stories, vampires drink red juice instead of blood, and sometimes help people who need a brave friend. Even though Bram Stoker's book was published more than 100 years ago, people still love telling his story. Readers and moviegoers enjoy the mystery of a character who stays forever in the shadows and comes out when the world is asleep. From books and movies to costumes and games, Dracula and other vampires will probably keep appearing whenever someone is ready for a spooky story. The story of Frankenstein's monster begins a long time ago with a young woman named Mary Shelley. In 1816, Mary was spending the summer in Switzerland with some friends. On rainy nights, they decided to have a contest to see who could make up the scariest story. That's when Mary came up with the idea of a scientist who builds a strange creature and brings it to life. Later, she turned her story into a famous book called Frankenstein, or The Modern Prometheus, which was published in 1818. In the book, a scientist named Victor Frankenstein is very curious about how life works. He wants to do something no one else has ever done, so he collects body parts and puts them together to create a big, human-like creature. When Victor finally brings the creature to life, he is so scared by its appearance that he runs away. The creature is left alone and doesn't understand why everyone is afraid of him. Deep down, he just wants someone to talk to him and be his friend. But every time he meets someone, they scream or chase him away. The more people are mean to him, the sadder and angrier he feels. Mary Shelley's story reminds readers to look past someone's looks and treat everyone with kindness. When Frankenstein was first published, people thought the story was both creepy and sad. Readers were shocked by the monster, but they also felt sorry for him. The monster was really just lonely and scared because nobody wanted him around. Many people thought about how Victor created the monster, but never took care of him, like leaving a new pet outside all alone. That's one of the most important lessons from the story. If you make something or someone, you have to be responsible and kind to them. As time passed, the story of Frankenstein became very famous. Writers and actors started telling the story on stage in plays. On stage, the monster often chased people, and audiences loved the excitement and scares. Even though the monster was big and strong, people could see that he was also very sad inside because he had nobody to care for him. Kids especially can relate to parts of the story. Everyone knows what it feels like to want a friend or to feel left out. Frankenstein's monster isn't evil, he just looks different. That's one reason people still care about this story. It reminds us that someone who looks scary can still have feelings just like everyone else. More than 200 years after Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein, people still tell the story, whether it's read as a spooky Halloween story or thought about as a sad lesson on being kind. Frankenstein's monster is someone we will never forget. Even today, his story reminds us to be gentle to those who are different and to look past appearances. Imagine walking through a quiet forest at dusk with tall trees around you and the sound of crickets in the air. As the full moon rises, its light filters through the branches. You notice big footprints on the soft ground, like a wolf's, but too large. You glance up and see a figure standing among the trees. It looks like a man, but then he steps forward, and something seems different. His face is furry, his eyes are bright, and his ears are pointed. You hold your breath. Is it a wolf? A man? A creature of legend known as a werewolf? Stories about werewolves, humans changing into wolves, are ancient. Some of the earliest tales date back to ancient Greece. One famous myth tells of King Lycaon, who disobeyed the gods and was turned into a wolf as punishment. Long ago, people believed that wolves were powerful and mysterious, and many old cultures had stories of people becoming wolves during magical nights. In Europe during the Middle Ages, many believed that ordinary people could become werewolves. Some thought it happened because of a curse or a magic belt called a wolf strap. Others believed it was a kind of sickness called lycanthropy, a mental condition where someone felt like a wolf inside. Back then, werewolves were often blamed for strange sounds or missing livestock at night. Sometimes, people accused a neighbor of being a werewolf and went to trial over it. Not all werewolves were seen as scary villains. In Ireland, there were legends about wolf warriors called Ulfhednar, who wore wolf skins to feel strong and brave. These stories said the warriors were connected to nature and wore wolf garments to feel powerful. Some believed these warriors traveled at night but returned to being human by day, courageous, not dangerous. There's a special tale from Brittany, France called Bisclaveret. A nobleman who turned into a wolf weekly returned to his castle, even in wolf form. Because of his gentle heart, his wife's betrayal was revealed, and he regains his human form with the king's help. It's a story about loyalty, kindness, and how a wolf's strong heart can help even when the world misunderstands him. In Latvia in 1692, a man named Thies said he became a werewolf on special nights to fight evil spirits underground and protect his village's crops. He believed his wolf form was a gift to guard people, not a curse. He said werewolves were hounds of God who kept danger away. Though his tale was unusual, it showed how people saw wolves as both powerful and protective. As time passed, scientists and doctors began to explain werewolf stories. They showed that some people had conditions that caused extra hair to grow, or illnesses that made them act strangely. The stories also came from real fears. Wolves were dangerous, so people used werewolf tales to explain the fears of night, wilderness, and unknown dangers. Today, werewolves appear in movies, cartoons, and books, but mostly as friendly or exciting characters. Many stories show werewolves helping people or learning to live between two worlds. The idea that someone could be one thing by day and something else by night surprises us and teaches us to be kind and understanding. Werewolves are not proof of real shape-shifting, but they show how humans have used stories to tell about fear, strength, mystery, and goodness. From ancient Greece to modern books, these legends help us explore our connection with nature and our imagination. If you ever walk in the woods on a moonlit night and see a shadow move just a little too tall or too quick, remember, you might be seeing the echo of an ancient story. And that story, the history of werewolves, is less about danger and more about wonder, mystery, and the magical spark in every legend. Imagine walking through snowy mountain valleys high in the Himalayas. The air is crisp and cold, and soft white snow carpets everything. You pause on a quiet path, and in the distance you see a large, furry figure moving among the rocks. It is covered in thick, white hair, standing tall as it takes each careful step. For a moment you wonder if it's real, but then it disappears behind a ridge, leaving only footprints in the snow. This is the legend of the Yeti. The Yeti is a creature from Himalayan folklore. Locals in Nepal, Bhutan, Tibet, and neighboring regions have shared stories about it for hundreds of years. Some call it the abominable snowman, but to them, it's simply the Yeti. People say it is shy and avoids humans. They believe it lives high in the mountains where few people go. Descriptions vary, but most say the Yeti stands 6 to 8 feet tall. It looks a bit like a big friendly ape covered in light-colored fur. Some stories say its fur can be reddish-brown too. The Yeti walks on 2 legs and leaves giant footprints in the snow. Often the creatures are said to be peaceful and curious, more like mountain watchmen than monsters. Over the years, explorers and mountain climbers have reported seeing huge footprints in the snow. In 1951, a British explorer named Eric Shipton photographed a giant footprint near Mount Everest. That photo brought the Yeti mystery to the world's attention. In 2019, soldiers from the Indian Army took pictures of massive snow footprints near Mount Makalu. Scientists later said they probably came from a bear, but the Yeti stories continued. In local folklore, the Yeti is sometimes even viewed as a protector of the mountains. Some Buddhist tales say it watches over holy lands and keeps people safe. These stories are not meant to frighten anyone, but to remind children to stay close to home and respect the wild mountain places. One interesting sighting happened in 1925. A Greek photographer and mountain climber named N.A. Tombazi spotted what he believed was a Yeti at about 15,000 feet elevation. He saw a figure pulling bushes and walking on 2 legs. Later that day, he and his group found footprints. Tombazi did not think it was a Yeti, but maybe a lost hermit. Yet his moment added wonder to the tale. Scientists today think many Yeti sightings might be misidentified animals like bears or monkeys. Brown bears and Tibetan blue bears sometimes walk on their hind legs and leave large tracks. Hair samples and footprints collected in the past were often traced back to bears, but the stories, especially from Sherpa people and mountain villagers, keep the idea alive. Whether the Yeti is real or not, the legend has inspired people around the world. Movies, books, and cartoons often show Yetis as friendly giants who live in snowy lands. In 2020, Nepal even used the Yeti as its tourism mascot. That means the mysterious snow creature is now a symbol of pride and wonder. Many modern explorers set out to find the Yeti using cameras, infrared sensors, and footprint casts. One scientist, Daniel Taylor, spent decades studying the Yeti mystery and visited Himalayan villages to gather stories. His work shows how folklore and science can meet in curious ways. The Yeti teaches us something special. It shows how people use stories to explain what they don't understand. Whether creatures like bears, unknown animals, or mountain spirits, the Yeti reminds us of the magic and mystery that still exist in the world. These stories make us curious and keep us respectful of nature. Even if you never see a furry creature on a snowy mountain, looking for the Yeti opens a window into stories passed down through generations. It connects us to the people of the Himalayas and their deep love for the mountains. And it reminds us that the world is still full of wonder.